Long story short, I went back into my hometown, Perm, which is situated at the foot of Ural Mountains, and I did that in the middle of winter just for a couple of days to walk with that pink beast. I had a couple of shots in mind. I really wanted to experiment with the Horizon camera because of its unique style and because of unique images it produces, and I really want to try to stitch a couple of panoramas together to make one huge panorama. That was my main goal during the trip, and as we'll see later, it did not really succeed, but I found the trip to be fun anyway. Well, it's slightly cool here. I arrived at night, but since the very next day I started to walk with that camera and trying to make a couple of shots.
So I'm planning to be here for a few days, and here is the first one, and it seems like it's the coldest one also. It's almost minus 20 degrees Celsius outside. And I don't really plan to shoot a lot in this trip. I have only one roll of Fomapan 400, which is a very cool film, and I really think that Fomapan is underrated heavily. So I have a couple of shots in mind today, and I'll try to pull that out. For this I went for a go to Kamo River. It's a very huge river across the Ural Mountains. I'm now in the middle of Perm, in the center of Perm, and I'm planning to go to the other side of the Kamo River because I see some dots there on ice. I think they are fishermen, the winter fishermen, so I'm planning to shoot them a bit. I don't really want to come close, I don't know, because I'm scared of people or something like that. I don't really shoot street portraits that much, but I'll try to shoot them from a distance because I think they'll make a kind of cool composition. My hand also has already been frozen, so it's quite cold out here, and probably I won't shoot too much today. Yeah, good luck to me! I've only started my journey and my boots are already completely wet. I think that's quite a bad sign, but look how beautiful it is here. One of the least obvious difficulties while working with this camera is it's very hard to compose a picture without looking straightforwardly into a viewfinder. Because it's so wide, it's kinda unpredictable. The workflow is different from the one you choose while working with usual cameras. Well, I made the one test shot. I suppose it's gonna be a pretty shitty photo, but the camera surprisingly holds up quite well. Well, at least it shoots. So I hope that there won't be any problems with that. Some people just asked me whether I was lost or not. I suppose they were worrying about my health or something like that. It's such a sweet move, I really like that. But no, I am not lost. It's the center of city. It's quite difficult to get lost here. You don't really want to follow that thing.
The next day, however, was the most interesting, intriguing even day of the trip, because we, with my friend, were heading towards Kungur. Kungur is a very old town situated near Perm, just 80 or 90 kilometers straight near, and it has some awesome mountain type-ish landscapes nearby. Our goal was to climb up the mountain named Yermak, and Ural mountains are not really high, but there is some quite astonishing atmosphere there. I really like that place, especially during the winter when the landscape gets almost surreal, it almost lacks any color, and it's really interesting. That's why I brought black and white film with me. So our way was the following: 90 kilometers with a suburban electric train, then 15 kilometers by walking, and then a couple of dozens of meters climbing up. And here we are. I wasn't filming during the climbing itself because it was kinda impossible. There are no paths leading to the top of this mountain, so we were struggling with ice and snow and wood and all kind of stuff like that. The fun thing is, the Trans-Siberian Railway is situated near this mountain, so the landscape became kinda anime-ish. It really looked like an anime because of, you know, this train and romantic stuff alongside that.
So I heard that they train alpinists here, and yeah, it looks realistic. The first thing I'll try is to stack 2 panoramas here and there and see what will come as a result.
As you might see, I wasn't really successful on stitching. I actually tried a couple of methods of stacking, but neither of them looked really good, and I ended up with this. I just placed one picture on top of another, and it looked kind of fun. And also, as you might see, I experienced some technical problems with that. The first one is being not really sharp. I don't really understand why, because in the instruction they say that this lens is focused on the infinity, so everything should be pretty sharp, but from my experience it's actually focused a bit closer, maybe on hyperfocal distance or something like that, so infinity becomes not really sharp on the wide open aperture. So of course everything will be tack sharp on f16, but I had no opportunity of shooting at f16. I needed to open the aperture up because it was really a dull day. Despite the ISO film being 400, I really need to crank up the aperture, and yeah, it's quite not sharp. Also, almost all of my shots from that day had this strange artifact on the side of a picture. You see that? I don't really know why it happened. I suppose it happened because it was quite cold and some parts of mechanism were frozen, because none of my photos from this camera had this artifact ever in my life, and I shot with it a couple of times before. During our trip we made a couple of discoveries, the first one being that funky sand carrier. And the other being this quite scary looking dog, and it was scary indeed because we met it like in the middle of the forest, but she was totally fine. She just walked around us, asked for something to eat, but we had nothing to that moment, so sorry, dog. And when the day was over, we went back to Perm. We were really tired, but really happy. During the last few days I wasn't really filming a lot, with an exception being my trip to my parents' dacha, and I think a couple of shots there came out great. I would go as far as to say they probably were the best shots made in that trip. And so here we are now. I'm now in Moscow and I'm planning to shoot a couple of other videos about this wonderful camera, which is Horizon Perfekt. And thank you for watching. Here is a bonus clip of me playing Beethoven